Today, we're diving into two small words that have a huge impact: land back. We're going to look at how media bias often works, not by telling big lies, but by making very careful choices about language, and how that one choice can completely change the story you end up hearing. But before we get into all that, just take a second. When I say the phrase land back, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? Seriously, just notice your gut reaction. Hold on to that thought, because it's right at the center of everything we're about to explore. All right, so first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What does land back even mean? Let's unpack it beyond the headlines and look at a foundational definition. At its very core, the land back movement is about justice. It's built around these huge ideas of restoration and self-determination. So, this is about way more than just a property deal. It's a call to return governance, stewardship, and decision-making power to Indigenous peoples over their ancestral lands. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The conflict here isn't just about the land itself. It's also a battle over the very words used to talk about it. Let's look at two different perspectives that are, for all intents and purposes, speaking two completely different languages. So, from the perspective of an Indigenous advocate, the language is deeply rooted in morality and justice. Listen to the words they use: restoration, stolen, inherent rights. This vocabulary doesn't frame it as a request, it frames it as correcting a profound historical wrong, taking back something that was never theirs to give away in the first place. Okay, now let's flip it. Take that language and compare it to the perspective of a government official. The language does a complete 180. Suddenly, we're hearing words like process, claims, and legal certainty. This frames the exact same issue not as a matter of right and wrong, but as a complicated administrative headache that needs to be managed. I mean, just look at them side by side. On one side, you have restoration. On the other, claims. You have stolen versus complex process, inherent rights versus legal certainty. It's pretty clear they aren't just disagreeing. They are operating in two totally different linguistic worlds. They're not even in the same conversation. So you've got these two clashing vocabularies. What happens when they get thrown into the media ecosystem? Which language gets the spotlight? And what does that do to the story? And this is the absolute key to understanding this. Media bias is often way more subtle than just making things up. It comes down to a quiet choice that a reporter or an editor makes. Are they going to frame this story using words like restoration, or are they going to use words like claims? That one decision can shape everything that follows. Let's actually watch this play out. We're going to take a hypothetical but very common scenario and see how simple word choice can create two completely different realities from the exact same set of facts. Okay, here's the situation. An Indigenous group is occupying a piece of government-run land. That's the objective fact. Now, imagine you're a journalist and you have to write the headline. Your choice of words here is absolutely critical. So here's headline A. This one uses the vocabulary from the Indigenous perspective. Reclaims, that word implies they're taking back something that was rightfully theirs. Ancestral territory creates that deep historical connection. Stewardship frames their goal as one of responsible care. In an instant, the group is cast as protectors. Now, check out the alternative. Same event, totally different language. This headline uses the government's vocabulary. The very same people are now called protesters. Their action is a disruption, and the result is legal uncertainty. Immediately, the group is framed as a problem, as a source of chaos. And finally, here's a shot at a more neutral headline. The word occupies just describes the action, right? It doesn't have the positive or negative baggage of reclaims or disrupts, and citing historic claim tells you why they're there without saying if the claim is right or wrong. It's trying to stick to the what and the why with less of the emotional spin. So just ask yourself this. If you had only seen headline A or only seen headline B, how would your opinion of the whole event be formed before you even read the first paragraph? It's powerful, right? The words don't just report the facts. They build the entire narrative and tell you how you should feel about it. Which brings us to, honestly, the most important part of all this. How can you spot this stuff for yourself when you're reading the news? Well, here is a simple 3-question toolkit that can help you see the frame around the story, not just the picture inside it. First, just ask, whose language is this? Are you reading words like restoration, or are you reading words like claims? Second, what's getting all the emphasis here? Is the story about a struggle for justice, or is it about creating a disruption? And third, and this one might be the most powerful question of all, whose perspective is completely missing? Whose voice are you not hearing at all in this story? And that's really what we want to leave you with. The words in the news aren't just descriptions, they are decisions. And those decisions build a world. So the next time you read a headline about this, or frankly, about any complex issue, just pause for a second and ask yourself, whose story is this really telling? The answer might just surprise you.